Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be covering the best top lane champs for patch 13.9. So these are subject to kind of opinion, but in my opinion, these three champs are really strong at the moment, so let's get into it. To begin with, Ornn is definitely #1 top laner at the moment. He is really strong into a lot of matchups, so are losing matchups. Things like Gwen, Camille, once she is Divine Cinderella, and Fiora are notable ones. Mordekaiser is also another bad matchup, especially in low elo. So overall, there are some weaknesses to him, but in his current state, where he's got a lot more strength in his knockups, he is really powerful. So for item-wise, you are going to be starting the same items most games. You're not really going to go anything other than D-Shield. You can go the refill start into building a D-Shield, but for the most part, I will recommend port D-Shield. For core items, Barmies is going to be your rush in most matchups. You are mostly going to go Sunfires after this. Mercs, Plated Steel Caps, and Lucidities all work quite nicely as boot options, especially depending on the comp. Jackshow and Radiant are your best two mythics. You don't really have much choice there. Frozen Heart, Formel, Fawn, and Abyssal all work quite nicely as well. These items can provide a good source of magic resist, Abyssal being quite nice in its current state. Fawn also working quite nicely against a lot of mages. Formel, really good against healing and just overall being more offensive of an option. Frozen Heart being a good attack speed cripple, combined with the value of the Warden's Veil passive, just makes it a really strong item. You can opt into other items. Things like Randomings can work. Gargoyles can also work if you're going the Jackshow route. For runes, you're not really going to go much else than Grasp or Phase Rush. Grasp is going to be Grasp, Demolish. Second Wind, you can run Bone Plating into some matchups. You can also run Conditioning if you have the ability to freely get it. Overgrowth and Unflinching are going to be your way to go. For secondary runes, you are mostly tied to Boots and Cookies. You can run Mana Flow Scorch, but I would recommend Boots Cookies. Attack speed is going to be your main in your substats. You can also run CDR, and then armor, magic resist, depending on matchup. Health, armor, magic resist all work quite nicely. You are a scaling monstrosity. Early game, you can lose to a couple of champions. He can struggle in some laning phases, but overall, the value of your ornaments, combined with the power you get from the item upgrades, it's just a lot of strength which he receives from, as well as being inherently a good tank. Making sure you use your passive correctly on Ornn is a big part of the skill expression. For rune, for summoner spells, you are gonna go flash TP almost every single game. For spells, W is going to be your core max. You can take 3 points Q and then W into E max, but for the most part, you are going to W max into E max into Q max. That is the best way to play Ornn. Ban Fiora. There you go. For an in-depth guide, check out Macro's Ornn guide. He is really good of a champion. He is one of the I think he is the highest rank on OTP, so definitely check it out. I'll link it in the description. Moving on, Poppy is in a really good state after her buff. She was already in a pretty good spot, but now she's strong against a lot of matchups. You can blind pick her. I wouldn't recommend it. You do want to you do want to be able to get people who with dashes, because if you lock in Poppy, then they're going to usually opt out of playing champs with dashes. For start, you are mainly just going to go Corrupting Pot. You don't really want to go D-Shield. You kind of need the mana sustain. You can run D-Blade, but it also has the weakness of not having the mana sustain. For core items, Divine Cinderella and Frostfire are your way to go. You can run Jackshow, however, I would recommend Machine Mythics over it. You want to be doing a bit more damage. Sunfire is a really good item for Poppy. Once again, the same kind of logic with Boots for Ornn. Steel Caps works quite nicely into auto-based champions, Mercs into high CC comps, and then Lucidities in games where you can't really get much use out of the other two boots. Fawn works quite nicely as an item, gives you good chase, magic resist. Frozen Heart, same reasoning as Ornn. Deadman's also really good chase, good damage, quite nice item for Poppy. Full Mail, really valuable. And then Gargoyles works quite nicely with her W resist, and overall the shielding is really valuable. For some of those, you're once again going to run Flash TP. You can opt into Flash Ignite on Poppy if you're wanting to play a bit more aggressive. QEW is going to be your max order. You're going to really want to ban Shen or Olaf. Olaf can cause a couple of problems, especially if you're not able to pick up the early Bramble. Shen, it's quite an obnoxious champ to play against at the moment, so those are my recommended bans. For runes, you are mainly going to run Grasp. You can run Phase Rush once again. You can also run Conqueror and Spellbook, but I recommend Grasp. Shield Bash or Demolish are your way to go, is the way you want to go. Second Wind or Conditioning, and then Unflinching or Overgrowth. For secondary, you can run Time Warp and Biscuits, but I'm going to recommend Mana Flow and Scorch. I'm not a huge fan of Time Warp. I think it's, with how much it's been nerfed, I don't think it's a great sub-rune to run. You can run attack speed, you can also run CDR, and even offensive if you're going for more damage. You can run armor or magic resist depending on lane, and then health, armor, magic resist once again. You are stronger in the early game. You do have a lot of damage within your E and Q, but you don't fall off during the game really. You just lose a bit of the early game power you have through your high damage and high based damage. So overall, probably really good champ at the moment, positioned quite nicely in the meta, especially with a lot of people playing Jace. She is very good into Jace. Akshan is very strong at the moment. Akshan has been rising in popularity in mid and top, and gaining win rate in both mid and top. So I'm going to definitely encourage people to learn him. I would recommend watching streamers though, or just people who play a lot of Akshan though. He has quite a high skill curve, and you really want to get your E down, using your stuff quite well, and your Q auto combos, stuff like this. Flash Ignite is the way you want to go. Q and E, you're going to want to alternate between these spells and then take W at level 8. You want to ban Jax. Jax is really obnoxious for Akshan. You can start D-Blade. You can also start Longsword and Refill. For core items, you can either go on hit or lethality, or even or you can go on hit, crit, or even lethality. On hit being his most common at the moment, but I would recommend crit. Crit feels a lot nicer to run. So Collector, IE, RFC, and then LDR or BT, depending on what you need. On hit, you can go things like Storm Razor, Wit's End, Bork, then Ginsu's, and you would want the GA as a last slot possibly. For runes, you can run Fleet or PTA. Fleet has a slightly higher win rate, but PTA feels nicer to use. Triumph, you can also run Overheal and Presence of Mind, Alacrity or Bloodline, Coup de Grace or Last Stand. You can also run Cut Down into high health team comps. Shield Bash and Bone Plating is an option, so is Eyeball and I was going to say Ravenous and Treasure. Biscuits and Cosmic is quite nice to run on him as well. Attack speed, you can also run adaptive. You can run double adaptive on him if you're not needing the attack speed and you have it through other sources. Things like Alacrity can be a good source of your attack speed. And then armor or magic resist. As you're an early game skew champion, you don't tend to run health as much. However, health does function on Akshan quite nicely. He is an early game champion, of course. If the game drags out for a while, he definitely falls off. It becomes a lot harder for him. He's a short range marksman, and his lane power, similar to like Gnar in a way, is what gives him a lot of value. Gnar does have the late game team fighting, so he does have value in that, but Akshan, really, really powerful early game, someone who can abuse it. Things like the Q, passive, and the PTA procs do a lot to chunk people out of lane, and it can be really threatening, because once you have an advantage, you're actually really good at snowballing this advantage. Plus, you have stealth, which is really valuable for roaming around the map, looking for picks within your own lane, stuff like this. So, overall, Akshan is the harder of the three. You do have to put a bit of time into playing Akshan if you want to climb with him. Poppy and Ornn are relatively easy champions. I definitely recommend these if you're just looking for some free LP. They will definitely climb you up to Diamond. For the matchup sheet, I definitely check out Macros. It's really good. He goes quite heavily in depth in a lot of the lanes. Things like Aatrox, of course, quite a popular one, is someone who he can struggle into, but Aatrox is not in a great spot at the moment. But overall, just definitely recommend checking this out and playing some of these free champions. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.